Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the healing journey of body and soul with Gabe Golden, film director and founder of Soulstream Media. Welcome, Gabe. Where are you connecting from today?
Oh, thank you, Charissa. I'm in San Diego.
Wonderful. I love San Diego. I spent half of my life growing up in Alaska and the other half in San Diego. So I'm very familiar with that area. Well, I'm Charissa Sims, live event host for Humanities Team, a 501c3 nonprofit organization whose mission is to make conscious living prevalent worldwide by 2040. And I'm coming to you live from Lafayette, Colorado. I also wanted to welcome Gabe's audience, those streaming live through the Humanities Team Facebook page, HT YouTube channel, and Stream Plus members that are here in the green room with us. Thanks so much for being members. And I also wanted to do a special shout out to the Sign Network with John and Summer Raymer at sign.network. And remember, it is a live program, so we will have time for comments and questions. This is an incredible opportunity to get your question answered by Gabe and try to get it in within the first 30 to 40 minutes of the program and just post it into the chat wherever you're watching and you may get it answered. I wanted to share a little bit more about Gabe. Gabe Golden is a documentary filmmaker and founder of Soulstream Media. Inspired by his own healing journey, Gabe produces content related to optimal health, regenerative agriculture, and inner transformation. He is currently in production on Awakening, a series that tells the stories of spiritual luminaries, and a featured documentary titled Hidden Buddha, The Life and Teachings of Tulku Thanda. So, Awakening, that's so incredible. We just finished a live event called Sacred Awakening Live. So I feel like we're on the same wavelength.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's awakening, of course. There's no real destination, right? It just keeps going. The idea is it's infinite, and awakening every day to our true nature is sort of a gift we get. So,
Yes, yes, that's so beautiful. Could you share a little bit about where you grew up and your life as a child?
sure, I grew up in Lake Tahoe. If people are not familiar with that, it kind of directly, the lake itself is split right down the middle between California and Nevada. And a beautiful mountain town with lots of outdoor activities in both seasons. And so I was a very active kid in both the summertime and in the winter, whether that was on skis or a snowboard or water skiing or mountain biking. And so yeah, it was a beautiful place to grow up. But it a lot changed at around the age of 14 when I went from a really active kid to a diagnosis of the autoimmune disease rheumatoid arthritis. So that changed a lot about what I could do and who I thought I was, and kind of set me on my path very early in my life.
Yeah, and so how did that happen? Did you start to feel a decrease in energy, or could you share about when you finally told your parents that you needed to see a doctor or whatever it might be?
Yeah, it came on pretty suddenly. I had actually, I was in karate. I was going to my karate class, and my feet were hurting a lot. I was just hard time even standing. A lot of swelling in my feet, burning, and then other joints started to be affected. I mean, I remember within about a 3 week period, I kind of went from full function to starting to really struggle to get out of bed. And then I'd say, within a month, all my joints just completely swelled up. Almost every single one was just full of swelling, and so that changed a lot about how I could function, and was very confusing. And parents immediately had me at Stanford and getting a diagnosis of rheumatoid arthritis, and this is back in 19 probably 85. And so at the time there were several autoimmune diseases, but they were more like lupus or rheumatoid arthritis or multiple sclerosis. Those were the more well-known ones. Of course, now we've got over 80 autoimmune diseases of different kinds.
Interesting. So, do you feel like it took some time to give you the proper diagnosis?
they diagnosed me very quickly, but they also gave me a dark prognosis immediately as well, that maybe within the next few years I might end up in a wheelchair, or maybe within 5 to 10 years, because the inflammation in the joints can be so destructive that over time you will be compromised, and a lot of people can get disabled if the medications don't work. So they put me on a lot of very hardcore immunosuppressive drugs very quickly. And that took about almost a year and a half to really uh, take effect in my body. And there were some side effects initially, and a lot of blood work constantly to make sure that I wasn't damaging my organs with those medications or reacting poorly. But ultimately, they did work for a while, and they suppressed my immune system enough so that I didn't have symptoms that were too brutal, and I was able to function and kind of get through life and through high school. But I was always in a lot of pain, and I always managed that pain with other pain management, things like nonsteroidal anti-inflammatories or aspirin or something. So it certainly didn't just make it go away. And then it wasn't until my early 20s that I started to experience some pretty significant side effects of those medications, and knew that was serious. And my rheumatologist at the time wasn't real worried about that. He just wanted to keep increasing doses of things and giving me more steroids. And that ended up sending me on a different path. I knew intuitively there had to be a different way. And so I walked out of my pivotal moment was walking out of hobbling on a cane out of the doctor's office, past the pharmacy, just through the prescription in the trash, and just knew there had to be another way. So
Wow. Did you feel that was maybe your soul or just your intuition? I mean, it feels like an empowering moment.
sure, it was something that was building in me for a long time. I think I always intuitively knew the body could heal. And I remember even as I was diagnosed at 14, by the time I was 16, I was asking my parents to buy me a juicer for my birthday. I was like, that's kind of where I was going with it. I thought, well, so I always had this idea around eating well and taking care of myself was going to be important. But it was never very simple. I mean, even changing things after I made that big decision and hobbled my way out of the hospital and went home and started seeking out help from alternative medicine practitioners, and even doing research on the internet at the time with what was available. And it just was limited in terms of what was available in terms of what could work, but also how fast I was going to be able to get somewhere that would be tolerable, because I abandoned my medications, which I don't recommend doing quickly. You want to very gradually get off of those kinds of things. So my whole reaction to that was pretty strong, and I became almost bedridden for quite some time until the natural things that I was doing started to work. But I did have some wonderful guidance. I did find some good alternative medicine doctors, and I wish I could say I did some acupuncture and changed my diet, went gluten-free, and it was all good, but that's not how it played out. Those things help for sure, but it became a lot of layers and a very broad adventure in what is optimization of our biology, and all those factors, which of course are diet and their environmental circumstances and products, and then of course the big one being our nervous system, and ultimately the spiritual component of that as well.
I see. I see. Well, I guess you were meant to have a little bit longer healing journey and
Mhm.
learn more about your body, what worked for you. So the original medicine that was recommended that you took, was it gold? Because I've heard of gold being beneficial topically. I mean, put in creams
Mhm.
and that can help with our cells. So was that part of the natural recommendations or was that part of your original protocol?
That was actually the original protocol, the first
Oh,
medicine they put me on. Yeah, and injections of gold. I
interesting.
think they call it Solganol, which they don't believe they use that anymore. Um, Pretty toxic at the levels that they're giving you
Oh,
for medication. But again, always having to have the tests to make sure there wasn't liver damage or kidney damage. It did, well, like I said, it did work. It's kind of a mystery as to why gold works, but there is an antibacterial, antiviral component to that as well. So there's some theory that maybe it does that. I think it could be that. It could be that it just suppresses the immune system. From there, there was a point where that stopped working within about 3 years, and then we moved on to methotrexate, which is a very still used today. Obviously, a cancer drug as well. This one's used in lower doses, but still very can be very toxic. So I was on that for a few years, and ultimately I did well, tolerated it, but like I said, ultimately there were some pretty strong side effects, and it was good to finally get off of that.
Yeah, so I have some comments here in the chat. Lori is asking gold with a question mark, and it's probably mixed with other factors in and like a liquid in order for your body to absorb it, right?
Right, right. And I don't even I was young. I don't know what was in it. Like I said, they call it solganol. It was some formula, but it was gold. It was literally a gold colored liquid that they would inject into me, I remember.
Yeah, and then we have another comment. Interesting. Glad to hear it's not being used as much at toxic levels. So so that is interesting. And I know in your course on Stream Plus, Lighting the Path, you go deep into nutrition. So we have the movie Lighting the Path, and then there's subsequent information that's really deep with interviews. So what made you want to create that?
Well, as I was on my sort of alternative healing journey, I started filming moments at the doctor and just kind of just decided to start documenting my process just to see where it would go, and and then from there there was kind of this roller coaster of steps forward and steps back, and I made some initial progress within the first year and a half. I actually went from where I was at, got off my medicines, hobbling around with a cane, to running back to the gym, and I kind of had my life back. Um,
Wow, that's quite a 180.
yeah, and I unfortunately it didn't last forever. That was a good phase, but I did heal majority of what I was dealing with. But then I had about a year of feeling really good. Then it came back on my knees. I had a lot of swelling in my knees, and that became one of the biggest issues. Was just kind of understanding what was it that was working and what wasn't, and what was the missing piece. And so there were several years where I was just kind of in a plateau of searching, and I didn't film much. I had some early footage, and then I got re-inspired as I began a support group for people others that had autoimmune diseases, and started talking to them, and everybody was very hungry for information and insight. And so, and I met one woman who ended up in the film, and she was just very inspired to solve her autoimmune issue. And she took some information from me and just ran with it. And I saw her, you know, and I got re-inspired, and I said, well, let's film her journey as well. So we started filming her, and then I started filming my own journey as well again. And that turned into a feature documentary, obviously. And then we had so much extra content with wonderful people that we had interviewed, that I wanted to just give deeper dive episodes, on all these really core topics that we ended up finding were so relevant.
Mm, that's wonderful. So, who was Dr. Brown and how was he important in developing potential solutions for autoimmune disease?
Dr. Brown was known for really pioneering the infection theory with autoimmune disease, particularly rheumatoid arthritis. And there just seems to be, I initially that was a big part of my journey in terms of a treatment approach. We did do pulse dosed antibiotic therapy in addition to herbs and all the diet changes and all these things. And it does seem that there's an infectious component to a lot of autoimmune diseases, but it's not always the case, because there's different ways, obviously, that the body can manifest an autoimmune reaction, and that I think traditional rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, some of these might have infectious components that when you treat that, it really does lower that trigger in the body for whatever reason. What we found was that I had pneumonia, as a kid, a couple years before I was
Mhm.
diagnosed. It was a pretty severe pneumonia. I had to go into the hospital for a few days. And then later in life, I find out that uh, mycoplasma pneumonia was connected to autoimmune, and particularly rheumatoid arthritis. And so that
Wow, that's fascinating research.
yeah, yeah, and there were not very many rheumatologists that knew that or were following that research, but I did find one that was wonderful, and he's also in the film, and he speaks about treating a lot of autoimmune with different antibiotics as well as using herbs and diet and all the other things. And so that became one that seemed to work for me. I also noticed when I got a fever that I would feel better. It just seemed like it kind of knocked out my symptoms for a certain period of time. Other people, obviously, with autoimmune, the gut is a big problem. Gut health, having the intestinal barrier have perforations that are allowing in undigested proteins. They go into the bloodstream, and then you have a reaction, to everything you're eating, which can cause an inflammatory response also. And that's not necessarily infection, right? So there can be a
Mm.
variety of ways in which the body might manifest these things. And so you kind of have to address everything in the whole point of the holistic approach, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I would love to play a clip from your course on Stream Plus, Lighting the Path with Gabe Golden. So, can we play that clip?
In my views, biological medicine is kind of a merger of different systems of medicine. And when I say systems of medicine, everybody is familiar with certain aspects of medicine, whether that's conventional medicine or alternative medicine or Chinese medicine, and it breaks down into modalities such as prescriptive drugs, vitamins, herbs, acupuncture. And biological medicine is a merger, or I'd say a marriage of all of these. And it's based on what human physiology is capable of doing, which everybody, when we went to medical school, said, this is an amazing organism, this is its potential. Sometimes it gets sidetracked into doing things that it shouldn't do. We know based on acute problems, those can be corrected, but there's this whole new system of, we'll say, disease called chronic disease. And I think that's where biological medicine kind of got its shine from, was that it was able to take a lot of the diagnostics and combine it with a lot of the therapies. Everybody has the capability to heal themselves. Everybody has the capacity to be their best. And what is the, we'll say, right combination to figure out how to make that person perform at the best? And when we're looking at biological medicine, we're saying, here's the capability of the body to get to this level of health. Sometimes disease kind of steps in the way, but the body has the capability to do it. It's the doctor's job to look and see what's, we'll say, limiting the body from doing that, and then using different therapies and whatever they may be to accelerate the ability of the body to not only heal, but in my opinion, to get performance out of that particular organ or out of that organism or out of that person.
So biological medicine is really about whole person medicine. It's individualized medicine. We may have 10 patients come in with the very same diagnosis, the very same name of the disease, but yet they have 10 completely different treatment plans, because their particular issues, their particular problems are due to an imbalance of one or many more of their different organ systems. In this clinic, what we find generally, any patient with a chronic illness, we'll say, has almost always got a minimum of 5 different organ systems that are out of balance. Could be their digestive system, could be their endocrine system, it's nearly always the lymphatic system. Or it could be their cardiovascular, nervous system. It's just a combination of things, and how it affects us, how it affects the individual is then what we ultimately are going after. And so that really it's a massive difference in going to a practitioner who practices biological medicine to a practitioner who just practices conventional models. So it's a much more all-encompassing, totally individualized. We don't treat disease, we treat patients.
Yay!
Mhm.
Sorry. The last thing he said is so powerful. We don't treat disease, we treat patients. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I love that you played that. Thank you. It's that's from the second episode, which is entirely about biological medicine, or I became familiar with regard to biological medicine, which is essentially functional medicine or alternative medicine as we might traditionally know it. But biological medicine comes more from Europe, and it has a lot more technology. They're very advanced. They're using very advanced diagnostics. So it's this beautiful merger, as he said, of Eastern philosophy of healing and traditional holistic healing with technology. And those are my two doctors who are just wonderful, Dr. Jeff Drobot and Dr. Dixon Tom, who are so powerful in terms of their just passion for healing, but really understanding how to integrate these therapies with everybody based on where they're at. And so that's the whole model of we treat the patient. When we first go there in the film, you'll see that he looks at this protocol that her name is Lainey. She's the woman that I started following initially. And she arrives and she's tried all these other therapies, so many therapies, and she's got this whole supplement regimen and this entire thing she's doing. And he takes a look at her protocol and he just says, well, you're on the right track, but there's just too much here. We need to simplify this. And after doing a variety of tests on her, he figures out where's her biology strong, where is it weak? What can the body actually do with all of these therapies, and what order? How do we prioritize this without overwhelming the body or the patient, in a way that where it becomes 12 hours a day of trying to just work to heal, because that isn't the way your nervous system is going to relax and actually heal, right? So, and that was the biggest lesson for all of us, because so many of us and the people in the film as well, we've all been chasing healing with all these modalities and all the things that make sense, right? We all know about the diets and the detoxing and all of that. But when we really got there, he would measure with what they call HRV, heart rate variability, our nervous system, and we would see this incredible imbalance of sympathetic and parasympathetic imbalance. And he said, when your nervous system looks like that, it doesn't matter what you're doing, your body will not integrate all of those healing processes. And until we calm that down, that's got to be the priority in order for your body to finally heal.
Yeah, I love that you said that. And it makes me think of my friend. She's in Los Angeles. She was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, and she was extremely stressed. She was, and it was probably a nervous system imbalance, like you're saying, was the source of it. So she really cut back. She had her own business. She started to do things that she loved, go swimming and cut back her hours. But another thing she did was Ayurvedic medicine. And 180, I mean, she completely changed her diet and started practicing like self-massage and doing things that really honored her body. What do you think about that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's so good to have a guidance. I mean, and that's what I loved about and felt so grateful for, to have those level of doctors, right? That someone's really
Mm.
helping guide you and is doing diagnostics to see where you're at. But there's an entire home protocol, right? We would go to the clinic and do a variety of treatments, very high tech treatments, but then there's an entire home protocol of not only diet, right, and supplements and certain modalities, but it's all about nurturing and resting. And they oftentimes they recommended to me to do somatic experiencing, which is, kind of it's a whole way of treating the nervous system, which is a talk and body therapy at the same time. It's a really beautiful modality. And there's a variety of others, but they want and understand that everyone must nurture themselves in a regular way on a daily basis, whether that's meditation and deep breathing, or just playing with your kids and getting outside, or going for a walk with the dog, or whatever it is that will really ground and reset the nervous system several times a day and stop us from just pushing that gas pedal down constantly, because that drive and that push is constantly keeping the nervous system activated and preventing the healing.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And you do dive into this deeper in episode 3 of Lighting the Path, Healing the Nervous System. I feel like this is so important. I mean, this would completely change the medical system and how people are looking at disease, really going to the source of it. Can we play that clip from Gabe's course, Jim?
Well, Well, one way to define resilience is able to move forward even in the face of challenges, right? So it's sort of like bounce back, right? How easily, how quickly can you bounce back or continue to move forward when something in life is dysregulating, unexpected, scary? So really the ultimate goal is to help people find their way back to their natural state, which is present, connected, available, alive, energized. Primarily the clients that I work with come in because they have either single event trauma, which is like a car accident, veterans from being overseas, or early developmental trauma, which I actually probably is the majority of my practice, which means that they've had confounding events from an early age that created some kind of trauma in their system. So the idea is that when clients come in here and we work from a more holistic perspective with the idea that trauma actually gets stored in the cells and in the tissues. So we're not just doing talk therapy, we're also working with the body and with the nervous system to help identify how trauma might be stuck in the tissue and help that move through, giving clients more of an access to their capacity for connection and presence and availability in their life.
And so is there a term for trauma that's more kind of, we'll say, subtle, collective type trauma over time as opposed to a traumatic event, like one significant event?
So that's developmental trauma, are these what you might call, they're not really smaller in the moment, but they might seem smaller than, let's say, a 10-car pileup crash. And so much of what is traumatizing is not in the event itself, but it's in how the person's nervous system responds to what's happening, right? So you could have two children in a very similar environment, and one child could accumulate traumatic stress where the other child wouldn't. And that is dependent upon so many factors, right? Their own kind of innate resiliency, other supports that they might have in their life at the time. Something that stands out for me, especially for the group of clients that I see, is that what they found was that witnessing violence, so whether that means a child was growing up in a home where there was domestic violence or there was some kind of physical unrest in some way, witnessing that and being the recipient of any kind of emotional abuse, right? So shaming, criticizing, blaming, put down, stonewalling, was actually more impactful in a negative way than children who experienced physical, sexual, and emotional abuse combined. But they didn't have the component of actually witnessing physical violence between other people. And so that's an important piece of information for me to have, because there are a lot of clients who come in who have early developmental trauma who often minimize what they experienced because they'll say to me things like, well, but I was never actually sexually abused. Nobody actually ever laid a hand on me. So they very easily discredit the emotional climate in the home and how that then had an impact on their own vulnerable nervous system, as well as witnessing the emotional climate between other people in the home. We also use touch work. So touch work meaning, we could call it energy work, but it's a way of supporting the nervous system in finding its capacity for that downregulation. So some work that I really like to do is kidney adrenal work, which just means offering some concentrated support in the region of the kidneys and the adrenals. Oftentimes that gives people an experience of feeling really supported, like someone's got their back. And when we feel like someone has our back, the world is a little bit of a less scary place. So I'm not actually manipulating anything or making your body do anything. I'm just holding the space to let whatever wants to come through, come through. I believe, and I think a lot of holistic or body, mind, spirit oriented practitioners would agree that the body is primed for healing. Like that's our natural inclination is towards what works and what is healthy and what feels good.
That last statement she said just gives me so much hope that our bodies are made for healing.
So true, right? It's always trying to go in that direction, and it's just a matter of us getting out of our own way. But yeah, that she Nicole is the one that did my somatic healing, and that's what you were seeing there, a little bit of her just providing support to my adrenals and kidneys, talking to me. She could feel my body settling, gradually as I relaxed more. And just like she said, just her offering, holding the space, guiding me very gently. And it was amazing over time, just how, as the body began to relax, emotion would just surface. I wouldn't even have to know exactly what it was. It was just releasing. And we had releases of, I would sometimes feel tightness in my core, like that felt like anger or something. And then it would just crumble and melt away, or I would cry. And just a lot of time it wasn't about anything specific. It was just a matter of the body letting go. So, as she said, there's trauma can come in a lot of forms, and we're all carrying versions of that, and we're all storing a lot of things. And that aspect of, and that has to be addressed when you're on a healing journey. And there's a variety of ways to do that, and some of them might get into the spiritual realm, but I think that that's essential, because ultimately these journeys become spiritual journeys.
Mm, yeah, that's such a beautiful thing to think about. So we've got some comments from the chat. So Kennedy Marthaler from Humanities Team says, love Gabe's story. And then Donna says, I have spent 10 years trying to get back to my natural state. What do you think about that?
Mm. Well, be careful with the trying, mm. Because in a way you are there, right? Always. And that's kind of that sounds like a Zen koan or something, but it, it's something to take deep breaths with and trust that our true nature is right there all the time. It's our stories, it's our conditioning, it's our limitations, it's all the things that we've been told, and then on these expectations we have on ourselves, that I think kind of cloud and create a veil around what that true nature is. And so understanding and working with, like, the trying can just be the practice of getting present, whether that's through meditation or through having, courses and good teachers that help just remind us. I think a lot of us like, this kind of format, or these series or these courses and all these wonderful teachers, because we're there, realizing we're there because we intuitively know, and we like to be reminded that this is actually who we really are. There's a soothing comfort in hearing from other teachers or from other people that have been on the path, or this encouragement that we really are whole already. And so I think that piece is just, it's important to remember we are there. It's just a matter of perspective, and always chasing it and seeing it out, that it's, I'll get well and I'll be okay then, is really the hard way to approach healing. I mean, I understand, believe me. I mean, I know what it's like to be in pain, chronic pain, and not, and then someone tells me that, I'm going to be like, well, yeah, but I'm still in pain, man. What's the deal? And but that shift in perspective is really kind of like, that can actually be the first thing. The priority is the nervous system, the nurturing, the self-soothing, the understanding that, this isn't your fault, but also taking responsibility. And from there, you're doing these modalities and doing the practices and things, because that perspective is really, you can't wait to get well before you have that perspective. Otherwise, you may never, get there.
Yeah, so it's like aligning with that natural state with our tendency, instead of seeing it out there and striving for it, because that can be stressful too, right? When you keep, I mean, you mentioned this before, when you keep trying to heal yourself and you're trying all these things and supplements and relax already, reduce your stress. And it can be a stressful state as well. Do you think?
Oh, absolutely. And then it becomes self-defeating, right? Because then it becomes work to heal. And there's so much
Mhm.
wonderful information out there now, but it also
Yes.
gets overwhelming. And that's why in the film, you see a lot of trial and error, and you sort of see us go through a variety of things and our stories unfold. But then the episodes are designed to provide deeper dives into sort of the things that we prioritize. It's like, oh, these are the lessons learned. Let's just kind of make these the priority in terms of the content, because it's just, you can scroll Instagram all day and Facebook and YouTube and get, hundreds of videos on from people that mean well, and everybody's putting out a lot of good information, but it can get pretty overwhelming in terms of how do I even prioritize this, and where do I start? And it really does come back to the foundational basics of good sleep, right? Good food, clean water, clean products in your home, getting rid of things that are burdening the body, toxins that are burdening the body, but also just that nervous system component. And you can even if you have a hard time meditating, if you can get in nature, put your feet on the ground, bare feet on the ground, and just breathe and just be in nature, you'll get a sense, right, of that space, of that true nature, and what's available right there all the time when we just quiet the rest of the noise. And then the nervous system loves that. It says, I'm safe. My cells know I'm safe. Like, I'm not constantly chasing. And that's when that healing starts to really happen, I think. But you have to do that consistently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And for me, even though I'm not necessarily on a healing journey, I still need that time in nature. And I make sure when I'm working hard, I take time to go outside with my dog and commune with nature, because, I don't want to be stressed and maybe have something else come up for me, if I'm not taking care of myself.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And the nurturing is essential. And also, I this was a challenge for me, but it became the ultimate question, which was, is this happening for me? Like, how is this happening for me? And did something actually not go wrong? Is this, it's not an experience I want to have. Is this pain, this dis-ease, but is this actually something I can work with and find meaning in? And is it's part of my path in life, my soul path, or however you want to look at it? And ultimately, that has been for sure my path, and I believe an essential part of my life and who I am. And and there's the saying out there that it's like, we don't necessarily love our experiences, but we love who we become from them, right? And so with chronic illness or any kind of traumatic event or any adversity we face, if we do seek the meaning in it, and we sort of find the spiritual aspects and the growth and the expansion there, then that chronic disease becomes like this badge, of like, well, that's my badge, I get to wear that the rest of my life as something I went through, and it gave me something, gave me a lot of lessons and wisdom.
Yeah, that's so beautifully said. And Donna said, yep, that makes sense. So she is agreeing, and it looks like you shifted her perspective, which is beautiful. And, before we get too deep into the interview, I did want to give this opportunity to showcase your new film, Awakening. So, do we have a clip? It's going to be a series. Do you want to talk about it before we play the trailer?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate that. We've done one pilot episode, as you'll see, with a wonderful spiritual teacher and an author named John Prendergast. And so we spent a few days with John and interviewed him and one of his colleagues. And we just the idea is to get a deep dive with spiritual teachers and luminaries, and get to know them on a deeper level, not just what they might offer as far as their teachings, but how they apply them in their life, their personal stories. So that's sort of the idea of each episode, and this is a pilot episode for that.
Okay, wonderful. Can we play that clip now?
I think we are here to awaken to who we really are as this open, loving awareness, to embody this awareness in an increasingly deep way, and to express it in our ordinary lives.
When did you first consciously had an experience of what is essential and true?
I knew in my second meditation that I referred to, kind of being able to consciously access the sense of infinite space, but there was something really essential in that. There is this kind of myth of specialness, kind of halo effect around teachers and teachings, and I fell for it, big time, which I can now see as transference and actually a projection of my own inherent wholeness and naturalness onto the teacher. This is the theme of finding one's inner authority and taking one's seat, which is such a profound process that we actually learn to trust our knowing, our deepest knowing, and that becomes our ground, and that's so much part of the de-idealization of the teacher.
That's one of the things I've appreciated about your teachings. It's so embodied. It so includes the heart, the head, and the hara, as you say, or the body and the primitive instincts or primal places of power and humanity.
This is where vulnerability, this is where honesty are so important. This is where the dedication to truth is central in this approach, isn't it? This willingness to not just be comfortable.
To the person who is watching this and is not familiar or doesn't have the experience of this practice, what does it do for a person?
It gave me a taste of freedom, of essential freedom, and it validated an intuitive sense of knowing this is who I am. Wholeness here, and then when it really matures, of knowing wholeness everywhere, which is the experience of communion, or oneness, or love, or non-duality, non-separateness. And for me, this is the great pilgrimage, the shift of attention from the head to the heart.
You can tune into people's gifts and their essence, sometimes even before they can recognize it, and you see it and hold it and mirror it and encourage it until they can kind of stand in it fully themselves.
The ultimate resource is really our true nature. It's beautiful to see that this essential nature is true for everyone, regardless of their conditioning or their background, and that one can contact it directly, free really of any ideology. It feels like that which is unconscious wants to be conscious. Really what does feel important is to give oneself to this opening that we're all invited to. There is a yearning we all have to recognize our deepest sense of self and to bring that forward into our ordinary life. To me, this is what's important. This feels alive, this feels authentic, this feels connected, this feels in service to something profound and beautiful.
Beautiful. So where can people see that, and when is it going to be launched?
Well, we currently the episode is on YouTube. They're on John Prendergast's YouTube channel, and I think I have it on my Soulstream Media channel on YouTube as well.
Okay.
But yeah, we're seeking distribution and funding to continue to do additional episodes. So.
Yeah, the production value is beautiful. And Ryan says, I know what I'm watching today. The Awakening. Did you feel like you had your own awakening through this dis-ease?
Oh, definitely. Yes. And it came in many different layers over time in terms of awakening to the idea that we can heal, that the body, as we said earlier, is always inclined toward healing, toward wellness, toward wholeness. But I think nurturing that and really following that intuitively is definitely something that keeps you awakening over and over and going further and deeper and expanding more into that. And it's ultimately why, with this film, the Lighting the Path film and that series was about the healing journey. And we definitely dive into the spiritual aspects of that. And then a lot of what I'm working on now is much more just all about the spiritual transformative aspects of the search, within, and that's really the lane I'm in now, and I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And just for our audience, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to put them in the chat. We'll be watching that. So, in your opinion, Gabe, what are the key ingredients and knowledge for true healing?
Well, again, it goes back to starting with the nervous system and those practices of really getting the body into a calm state, recognizing trauma that you may have, really, and again, not just that word trauma is very dramatic, but as Nicole was saying earlier in that clip, there's collective traumas, there's things that can be neglect, abuse, and even just incidents and adversity that we've experienced in our life, whether that's at a young age or even just teens and in any time in life where we've kind of begun to carry and collect a lot of trauma or collect a lot of adversity that gets stored. And so I think that piece, starting there and exploring that, is a really big component. You can try a variety of other things, but I would start there as your foundation. And then, the daily practice of just getting up and getting outside. Circadian rhythm is a huge piece of wellness, and that's another piece that's really, I think, underestimated, which is getting sunlight early in the morning or getting bright light in the morning so that it really triggers the right hormonal responses and immune responses. Physiologically, we're just sort of built to, get light in the morning, get moving in the morning, and get hydrated and get good minerals in our body. So just very simple foundational things that, and not overstimulating with caffeine and not just going right to the computer and not just sitting in a congested, position for hours on end. I mean, you've got to move, you've got to let the body continue to expand and flow and keep circulation going. So those key ingredients of nurturing the nervous system, nurturing the body with hydration and minerals and movement and light, I think those are key. And then, from there, you've got a variety of different tools that can help. There's a lot of talk of detoxification ways of doing that, and different types of movement that are good. And you got to be careful with detox, especially if you've got a chronic illness. You likely have. We all have toxins,
Yes.
and you don't want to just jump into a detox program on your own. Or it's really good to have a guidance from a practitioner who can really test, ideally, or just make sure that your elimination pathways are open. You want to really have already worked on digestive cleansing, and you want to open those pathways, open the lymphatic system with a variety of different treatments. You can do, the more hardcore lymphatic treatments that you go and get like actual technology that helps move the lymph system. And you'll see that in the biological medicine episode 2, or you'll see it in the film where that's a key component. And then you also have the lymphatic, just skin brushing, movement, things like that help move that. Once you clear those, then you've actually opened up the system for detoxification, and that'll oftentimes just happen naturally if you're eating well and just taking care of yourself.
Yeah, I love that you said that because not a lot of people talk about that, including me. When I talk about detoxifying, it's like opening up the channels, like there's a process surrounding it. So I think that is a really important piece, and I hope people are paying attention. Yes, it's important to detox, but make sure you can get those toxins out, because otherwise you can get more toxic, right? If they don't have anywhere to go. Is that what you're implying?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you go take some variety of herbs or you do some protocol, then it starts pulling stuff out of your tissues, whether that's heavy metals or
Right.
infections or variety of toxins. They get into the system, they can just get recycled, and then they become active in the bloodstream where they were in the tissues because the body said, "Oh, we don't want to deal with this right now. We'll get to this when we can." But now you've pulled it out into the bloodstream, but it can't flow right out of the body quickly. Then you can recycle things, and it can make you feel pretty miserable. And this is a thing that's very common with autoimmune disease too, is that people will go through flares or what they call Herxheimer reactions, where they try to heal, and then you just feel miserable for sometimes weeks or months because you trigger an autoimmune sort of increase in all of that because you've now dumped a bunch of stuff into the bloodstream that can't get out of the body.
Wow. You just like blew my mind.
Mm.
And there's just always more to learn
Mhm.
about our bodies and health. It's just incredible. And that's why you continue to make these movies that are so informative. And we just appreciate you. And I'm just curious, do you offer consulting? Do people come to you for healing because you've had so much success?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, well, I get a lot of questions online, and I try to answer people as I can.
Okay.
I'm actually in the process right now of developing a center here in San Diego. We've got the gentleman you saw in that Awakening trailer is a colleague of mine and good friend who has a practice here, a psychotherapy practice, and he's also got a deep background in spiritual studies, and so he's treating that emotional component, right? He's treating the nervous system, and now we're bringing in a lot of the more modern technologies like from biological medicine. So we're combining this center into something where we can do nutrition, technology, diagnostics, and really treat that emotional component with somatic work or meditation and a variety of psychotherapy. So combining technologies that can do that as well as diagnostics that can sort of identify those key triggers that you might have. So yeah, I'm involved in that.
Oh, okay. Wonderful. I feel like it needs to have golden somewhere in the name. Or,
Oh, thank you.
because, it's like your last name. I don't know. Not that you have your ego involved in this at all, but you just want to help people. Um, so that's amazing. I love that you're making a center. And San Diego it's just healing in general, the ocean and
Yeah,
the,
wonderful. And there's
the
a wonderful
air.
community here. Everybody's very
Yeah.
dedicated to that, a variety of practitioners. So we're trying to actually build this also as a community, and utilize the resources and tools of so many really, talented and wonderful people.
Yeah, that's incredible. So keep us updated on that. And we do have a comment from Ryan. Okay, so he did do a detox. He did his first 3-day water fast in January. Yes, please consult your doctor before any of this. This is his own experience to enter autophagy and reset. I still feel like I'm living the benefits from that experience. I love learning more about the body and balance. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and fasting is really powerful, right? But
It
it is
is.
something that it just seems like depending on where people are at, some people can tolerate that better than others, and it can be pretty uncomfortable. Again, fasting can also start dumping a lot of toxins, and if you don't have clearance of your elimination pathways, those aren't open, that can be very difficult. But it's true that even if you do gentle detoxing or fasting where you're still having broth and maybe, you're still consuming certain very, very light foods, that can be very cleansing. And it can sort of help the body gradually do that process of getting into autophagy and ultimately cleansing and getting rid of things it doesn't need.
Yeah. So autophagy, do you know what that is? I don't exactly know what it is. I know we could Google it, but what does it mean?
Yeah, I know enough to be dangerous, but yeah,
Yeah.
autophagy is essentially you getting the cells. You've got cells that are essentially dead or senescent cells in the body that are no longer really serving the body, but they are kind of hanging out and they haven't been eliminated and cleansed out. And so when you fast and now the body does not have a whole bunch of food to digest and process and work with, it can start eliminating those senescent cells, and autophagy will be this sort of gradual deconstruction of those cells and elimination of them out of the bloodstreams.
Well, you did a much better job explaining it than I would have. So I appreciate that. Well, let's play another clip from your film. Oh,
Thank you.
you got a heart from Ryan. So nice.
Back at you.
Yes. Can we play that clip, Jim?
The failure of medications in treating the underlying cause of almost any chronic illness is evidence that we are seeking answers from a system that isn't even asking the right questions. A diagnosis is just a label that represents symptoms, but ignores the purpose the underlying information our biology is telling us and puts a limit on our healing potential. But if we are to transform our medical system, we must expect more from ourselves. We can avoid years of suffering by learning what true health is and applying that knowledge. Those of us in this film have been fortunate to encounter the incredible pioneers and true healers who are always pushing the evolution of medicine. But anyone on this path must also go on a journey within. As one of the most essential components, we'll be discovering how your thoughts and emotions affect your physiology. It is our nature to be healthy, but when that is challenged, we have to seek the light in the dark and have an unlimited frame of mind about what is possible.
So that movie is available on Stream Plus, and it's just so inspiring. I love it because it combines heart and connection with research. So you can learn something, but it's also a powerful story of this woman that went on the healing journey and your own story, Gabe.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's emotional to watch just that little bit in the end there when you see me look at that little gold card holder, because that was something made for a friend of mine who did not make it all the way through the film. But
Oh, wow. That is powerful. Thank you for sharing that. I was wondering about that,
Mhm.
that last moment. So, how did you come to the conclusion that the healing journey is a gift?
Good question. Yeah, I'd say that there's just so much wisdom in challenge and adversity, right, of any kind, particularly with illness. You, for me, learning how to what really like self-love looks like, and kindness to the self, and um, how to actually practice that, and how that opens as you open to that idea and kind of go with that. Although I've had wonderful spiritual teachers that have helped me with that. And I think once that happens, it spills out into the world, and you become deeply compassionate for other people and their stories and wherever they're at and what they're going through. And so that changes and softens, your relationship with the world in so many ways. And you just go through life, I think, with a more of an ease and an understanding. And again, kind of that idea of like, is this all for us? Things that are wrong, we judge as wrong, or whatever adversity is, or the ideas of challenges, we kind of look at them sometimes as we judge them immediately. And I think there's just such a potential through a process like this of stopping judging so much, judging the self and judging these circumstances, and actually learning how to be with them in a way that softens them, and then somehow call it a quantum, kind of law of attraction type of thing. But I think as that practice happens more, you begin to maybe attract less adversity, or at least your experience of life and the adversity you're in is softer, gentler, and there's more meaning in it, which changes, the experience quite a bit. So I think there is a gift there.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you everyone for joining us for the healing journey of body and soul with Gabe Golden. His program, Lighting the Path, is available now on the Stream Plus platform. So join Stream Plus now and gain immediate access to this incredible film and program, Lighting the Path. So you'll get access also to multiple global oneness sessions and hundreds of other incredible spiritual teachers and programs. We are proud to say that Stream Plus is the largest global streaming platform for consciousness raising masterclasses and transformational education. We are also a nonprofit and give back with our 1-for-1 program. I wanted to thank Steve Farrell, Dee Meyer, and the production team, Jen Gray, Garth Catterall, Andy Gutsky, Karen Weissert, Nanette Kennedy, and the rest of Humanity's team. Blessings to you, Gabe.
Oh, thank you so much for what you guys do and for having me.